52.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Chernoff. We redirect, Mr. Walgren?
No further questions.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
May Mr. Williams step down, subject to recall, Mr. Walgren?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Chernoff?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, give me a moment.
Yes,
Please
sir.
don't discuss your testimony or the facts of the case with any other witnesses until we finish the trial. You may step down and leave. However, you are to remain on call, and you're subject to recall up until the end of the trial if necessary. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're excused. The people may call their next witness.
Thank you. May we approach, Your Honor?
You may. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. People will call Faheem Muhammad to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please state your name for the record. Spell your first and last names.
Faheem Muhammad, Faheem Muhammad.
Mr. Muhammad, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon,
Let me
sir.
provide you with some instructions, which are instructions I give to every witness in every case. The first of which is to please sit back and relax. The second of which is to speak in a loud voice so all of us can hear you. The third of which is to answer questions yes or no if it's called for, rather than using slang or which can be really tricky. And the fourth of which is to wait until you hear an entire question before you even start to answer it. In our daily lives, a lot of interrupting each other because we think we know what the answer is going to be before the question's asked. But in court, we need to wait for the entire question and then respond. Is that all right?
Yes.
Thank you. Direct by the people,
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Walgren.
May I have one moment?
You may.
Your Honor? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Muhammad, I want to take your attention back to June of 2009. At that time, where did you work?
For Michael Jackson, sir.
And what did you do for Michael Jackson in June 2009?
I worked his security for him.
I'm sorry?
I worked security for him, security.
Okay. And in June of 2009, at that point in time, how long had you worked security for Mr. Jackson?
Approximately 10 months.
And what were your responsibilities?
I was the chief of his security, so my responsibilities ranged from making sure his house was protected, making sure his children were protected, and making sure his day-to-day activities and movement was all safe and planned and mapped out.
And where did you operate it out of? Were you generally housed in the trailer on site?
Yes, sir.
Okay. if Michael wanted to go shopping or something, would you be part of the planning and the transportation to do something like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And would you typically deal with Mr. Jackson directly, or would you deal with Mr. Jackson typically through Michael Amir Williams?
Typically through Michael Amir Williams.
And when you came on about 10 months before June 2009, did you come into employment as chief of security, or were you working in a different capacity, or
Driving.
initially as a driver?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you were you promoted to chief of security?
Yes, sir. Basically, yes, sir.
Okay. And were you working security then on basically a daily basis, and let's say from the period of April, May, and June of 2009?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sometime around March of 2009, did you meet Michael Jackson's personal doctor, Conrad Murray?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you see that person in court here today?
Yes, sir.
Could you identify that individual, please?
Yes, sir.
And describe what he's wearing, please.
Gray suit, gold tie, looks to be blue shirt.
Indicating the defendant, Dr. Murray.
Thank you.
Yes,
You're
sir.
welcome.
And Mr. Muhammad, where did you first meet or first see Conrad Murray?
At Mr. Jackson's house.
Were you ever introduced to him, or was it you just saw him around, or what were the circumstances when you first saw him?
I don't recall before I was introduced, but I do believe eventually I was introduced to him.
Okay. And then during these months of, let's say, April, May, and June, would you see Dr. Murray at the house with regularity?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was that in the nighttime?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge, was he staying overnight just about every night during that period of time?
Yes, sir.
And would you see his vehicle at the location overnight?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know what kind of vehicle that was?
It was a silver 645 BMW.
Okay. Showing me people's 11 for identification. Is that the defendant's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Time, did you know why Dr. Murray was coming to the house and spending the night? Did you know any details as to why he was doing that?
No, sir.
Were you aware of, or did you personally see oxygen tanks being moved around the premises or into the security trailer?
Yes, sir.
What did you personally see in regard to these oxygen tanks?
I seen the oxygen tanks in the trailer. I seen Dr. Murray bring the oxygen tanks. I just was be seeing them being moved in and out, basically.
Okay, by Dr. Murray?
Dr. Murray, sometimes he would bring them to the back door, and the security would just bring them into the guards that were on duty, that were always present. They kind of knew the routine better than myself because they were always there when he would do it. But I would see him maybe bring them to the back door, and they carried them inside the trailer.
Okay. And this was during the time that Dr. Murray regularly at the home?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I want to take you directly to June 24th, 2009.
Okay.
Were you involved at that time in arranging and transporting Mr. Jackson to the Staples Center for his last rehearsal?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what time you left to go to the Staples Center?
Around 7 o'clock, sir.
In the p.m.?
PM. Yes, sir.
And were you typically the driver on these types of outings?
Yes, sir.
Were you the driver that night?
Yes, sir.
And who traveled with you?
Myself, Michael Amir, and Mr. Jackson.
And when you arrived at the location at Staples Center, what occurred when you first got there?
Our normal routine, We came in down low. Our advance team met us with golf carts. It was a long walk from where we were parked to Mr. Jackson's private room. So they met us with golf carts. We loaded up on the carts and we moved out to his room.
Okay. So you would come into the subterranean area of the Staples Center?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And someone from the advance team would meet you in a golf cart?
Yes, sir.
Would that typically be Alberto Alvarez?
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
would.
And then through the basically the subterranean tunnels of the Staples Center, they would take him in the golf cart to his own personal dressing room?
Yes.
Okay, and that's what happened that night?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, after Mr. Jackson was taken to prepare for rehearsals, what did you do?
We would normally set up a slight perimeter. So they had a couple different emergency exits and doors that weren't all the way covered that we would sit guys in the perimeter of. And then we also had our own room that we would go to, and we had our own treats, snacks, just different things, television. So I would usually set up the security, set up a rotation, and then I would take a break for a while and then come back in and relieve the other security.
Okay.